Well, there are no more games, but it's time to start handing out some trophies.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, so please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, man, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page, and leave that hashtag EverydaySully. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And let's go over the trivia question, which is, what team was the first to win Game 7 of the World Series while trailing in the ninth inning? The first team to win Game 7 of the World Series while trailing in the ninth inning. And Gavin Luhash, 2995, I believe the 97 Marlins were the first to win a World Series after trailing the ninth inning. That's correct. You started the World Series in 1903, and they missed two World Series. So there's in the first, in the first 92 World Series, you never had an instance with all the great teams and all the great players. You never once had an instance of a team going into the ninth inning of Game 7 of the World Series behind and then walking away winners. And we had that this year. And it was the first time a team did that did it on the road. The Marlins were they were playing in Joe Robbie Stadium, which I think they called it that back then. I don't know. They called it Pro Player Park for the second one, but I think the first one was still called Joe Robbie. And then for the when the Diamondbacks did it, again, I think it was still called Bank One Ballpark. But do you know what? I digress. They change those names all the time, but I know for sure that Los Angeles was in Toronto for what happened just a couple of days ago. People are still, obviously, I live in Los Angeles County, so people are still buzzing about it here. Here's what's so crazy about, I'm probably going to talk about the World Series a few more times, but, just looking back, you had an 18-inning game where there was all sorts of things happen. You had a game where the ball got stuck under the padding. We talk about how, if Isaiah Kiner-Falefa had maybe 2 feet further down the line, or the throw by Rojas was just a tiny bit more to the right, or Will Smith's footing was just a little bit worse. Any of those things happen, the Blue Jays are the champs. If the two collided, the Blue Jays are the champs. We're not even talking about the fact that there was a ball stuck under the freaking batting. Now, I don't think that would have been a game tying inside the park homer, but I think it would have been a triple, and it would have had the tying run on third with nobody out, which is a different animal because we saw what happened with him on second base. Holy Toledo. This series is, again, where it fits historically is going to take a little bit of distance, but sometimes you just know. Sometimes you just know when you're experiencing something in real time, like, oh, we're going to be talking about this. I knew in 91 when I was watching the 10-inning shutout by Jack Morris, I thought, okay, we're watching something special here. That game between Florida and Cleveland, I was like, yeah, we're watching something special here. Do you know what this reminded me of? Trust me, in my mind, this makes sense. The first time I saw Goodfellas, I saw it in a theater in Greenwich Village in New York. I was going to college at the time there, and I was a huge Martin Scorsese fan, and my expectations for Goodfellas was through the roof. And then I saw it, and somehow it exceeded my expectations. And when I came back to my dorm room, there was a sense of, wow, I really just experienced something extraordinary. So yes, that was the Goodfellas, and of World Series, and Blue Jay fans were Tommy going into the room when he was about to get made. Spoiler alerts. He didn't. Okay, so there you go. But there's other stuff that's happening right now, and one of the things that's starting to happen is they're starting to hand out some trophies. Now, the Gold Gloves were announced the other day, and I have to be 100% honest with you. Um, I am not the biggest uh, enthusiast for the Gold Gloves. I don't. It's not really something that interests me as a baseball fan because there's something. It's an award that is. It's difficult to qualify, and I guess I'm going to be a hypocrite because it's not just that it was, um, it's subjective, but all awards are somewhat subjective, no matter how many stats we throw at it. But I just, it's something that doesn't really interests me as much as it should because you've had horrible instances of like when they gave it to Rafael Palmeiro famously and he only played like 20 or 30 games at first base all year. So there's that element going on. And I mean it's a nice thing, but it's let me put it this way. When the subject is Gold Glove winners on Immaculate Grid, I I zone out. I mean the winners were Dylan Dingler as a catcher, American League, Ty France first base for the Blue Jays and Twins. It's interesting. He wasn't even the starting first baseman in the World Series. Marcus Semien for the Rangers at second base. Bobby Witt Jr. For the Royals at shortstop. Michael Garcia at third base for the Royals. Stephen Kwan, left field for the Cleveland. Cedar Rafaela, center field for the Red Sox. William Abreu, right field for the Red Sox. And Max Fried, pitcher for the Yankees. And Mauricio Dobon for the utility position, which didn't used to be a one they gave up for Houston. And then actually Patrick Bailey, catcher for the Giants. Matt Olson, first base for Atlanta. Why can't the A's get players like him? Nico Horner, second base with the Cubs. Mason Wynn, shortstop. He's 23 years old, got his first Gold Glove there. Third base, Cabrian Hayes, who was traded midseason to the Pirates from the Pirates to the Reds. I'll get into that trade again. The outfield, two Cubs in there. You have Ian Happ in left, Pete Crow Armstrong in right, and in center, and Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field. Logan Webb to the picture, and Javier Sanoa for the Marlins as the utility player. Okay, congrats to all of them. And that's the last I'm going to talk about that. Except a couple of things here. You had a rookie, Sanoa for the Marlins. Start to build your team around the Marlins who have a little bit of talent in there. And same thing, we're going to talk about some of the finalists. And yeah, I'm looking long and hard at you, Pittsburgh, that you have to go out in this offseason and start to put a major league team on the field because you have an absolute lock for a major award. And it's not the Gold Glove, something I don't really care that much about. It is a commodity that so few teams have. And if the Pirates don't do something about it, folks, I don't want to hear you complaining about the Dodgers. The problem would be the Pirates. All right, let's talk about good friends over at Prize Picks. Now, you know all about Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every day. But Prize Picks, being right means you get paid. Don't miss any excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You pick more or less and at least two player stats. If you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, including Texas, including Georgia. Now, if you want to use PrizePicks for both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, you're all clear. Sometimes you pick your favorite players. So you got Mahomes here, you got Steph Curry. They're not going to be teammates in real life, but they are here, and you can see how your predictions pay out. New stacks feature. It's a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's 3 points and threes and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves the lineup from a loss. So Download the PrizePicks app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 off, or $50 in lineup as you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, let's go over some of the awards finalists here. And you can't see it. I have right here where I'm pointing right there is I have on my screen a Google Doc of who I personally picked to win each of these awards. And I wrote these down before the wild card series because remember, these are not postseason awards. How a player performed in the postseason has zero impact on whether you get MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, because, say it with me, the voting was done before the playoffs began. With that in mind, I'm recording this on election day. There's a lot of elections going on right now. Governors, Prop 50 here in California. This is not a political show. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I have very strong political thoughts, and they sometimes seep out. But here's the deal. Baseball has to be one of the uniters that we have. We need to have some life rafts that we can all hang on to, no matter who you vote for, whatever your politics are. We need that to move forward in this country because we can't sustain hating each other. It's just you can't do that for the long term. However, the point I was making is you have these very complicated elections that you can tally the votes and everything and get a result tonight. You have a much smaller voting body going for these awards. I'm going to start to say who the nominees are. And the fact of the matter is, you can announce who the finalists are before first pitch of the wild card series, and then announce who the winners are before first pitch of the World Series. They should do that. That should be something that happens. Or you announce them all immediately the day after the World Series. But I think it'd be fun to do that, you know who the MVP and the Cy Young is. I think they should do that. I think they should announce the winners before the playoff starts, but I digress. The AL MVP award, the three finalists, you have Jose Ramirez in the classic I'm just happy to be nominated category. Jose Ramirez had a wonderful year for Cleveland, but there's no way he's winning the MVP. You know it, and I know it. It comes down to Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge. And to me, this is an absolute coin toss. And here's how I know it's a coin toss. Because I say that, and I have people say, what are you talking about? Of course it's Aaron Judge. Another group of people say, what are you talking about? Of course it's Cal Raleigh. Now, I am a native New Englander, a classic Yankee hater, and I have a master's degree from Washington State University. And you would have thought I grew up in Spokane. I was rooting so hard for the Mariners in the ALCS. I still put Aaron Judge down. So sue me. I don't think he's going to win, but that's if I had the vote. It's by a whisker. I think that Raleigh is the better defender and beats him in home runs and RBIs, and Judge beats him everywhere else. And you can call me foolish, you can call me silly. I just look at the fact that, he slashed 331, 457, 688. If you like home runs, he has 53 of them. You like runs scored, he led the league in runs scored. He led the league in walks. If you like WAR, whether you use fan reference or fan graph, he just leads everything. He had almost his entire line at baseballreference.com was black italicized. That's not taking anything away from Cal Raleigh. I think Aaron Judge is going to come in second to Cal Raleigh. And if Cal Raleigh wins, I'll say, great. He deserves, he's deserving of that award. I think either one of them deserves it. I lean a little towards Judge because I also know what the team would happen without him. They're an absolute mess without him. But I have a feeling it's going to go to Cal Raleigh. I would vote Judge, but there you go. I think it's a razor thin round. I don't think there's a wrong choice there. Then you have the what would be up here now? The National League Most Valuable Player. The nominees are Kyle Schwarber, Juan Soto, and Shohei Ohtani. This is kind of like when Spielberg was nominated for Best Director for Schindler's List. All the other nominees, they should have just been in sweatpants and the T-shirt. You knew you were not getting up there. I mean, I'm sorry, Carl Schwarber. You're a wonderful player and have had a fantastic impact on Philadelphia. And man, can you? I mean, Juan Soto. Met fans talk about Juan Soto like he's a bust. Like he's this is Bobby Bonilla 2.0. By the way, Bobby Bonilla actually had a couple of good years with the Mets too, but I digress. They were talking about he's a soft and he's bad and blah 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 blah. Yep, he's an MVP finalist. If you look at his numbers, he had big numbers. Come on, this is Shohei Ohtani. I mean, the fact that he pitched again. He he had a 2.87 ERA as a pitcher to go along with 50 some odd home runs, 100 some odd RBI, batting OPS. He led the league in OPS. What are we even talking about here? Obviously, Shohei Ohtani is going to win yet another MVP award. He is at the point where he is the MVP until proven otherwise. The American League Cy Young Award, you had Hunter Brown for Houston, who had a really, really good season, and Garrett Crochet, who was a terrific pickup. Chris Sale 2.0 for the Red Sox, another steal from the Chicago White Sox, and Tarik Skubal. Now, you could make an interesting case for Crochet. The fact that he had pitched more innings, and I put a lot of weight in throwing innings. He pitched 205 in the third innings and struck out 255 batters and had a solid ERA of 2.59. I really, really put a lot of emphasis on you throw a lot of innings as an ace. That's what an ace has to do. I still think it's Tarik Skubal. And Skubal just, again, led the league in so many different categories and was so dominant. And I don't care how many pizzas you have to sell in Detroit. You've got to sign him. You cannot afford to let him hit the open market. Call his agent, ask him what it'll take, whatever number he says, add $1 to the end of it for goodwill and sign him. Because the Tigers can't afford to not have him there. I don't care if the Yankees need him. I don't care if the Dodgers are salivating. I don't care if the Mets are salivating for him. The Red Sox are. Everyone should be salivating for Tarik Skubal. You can't trade him because you'll never get value for him. And make that offer. Find out the number. Good Lord. The Rookie of the Year award. You have Roman Anthony for the Red Sox, who had a terrific year. Kind of came up a little too, came up in June, wound up getting hurt. I think eventually he's going to be a perennial all-star, but I don't think it's going to win it this year. Then you have Nick Kurtz. He had the big 4 home run game. One of them was off a position player, but there you go. And he hit a bunch of home runs, had a fantastic OPS. And then you had Jacob Wilson, who was just a terrific shortstop for the Sacramento A's. We are, by the way, being way, way too cooperative about that name. Okay? They play in Sacramento and they're the A's. Every team in the history of baseball has a city designation to them. So they're the Sacramento A's. If you want to be a nitpick, call them the California A's or something like that. But give them a city. They play, or if you want to be really pedantic, call them the West Sacramento A's. But don't just call them the Athletics. We're all being way too cooperative about that. Just anything, we should not allow John Fisher the benefit of any doubt. Of the two, I'm going to give it to Nick Kurtz. But to me, that's a coin toss between the two of them. Whoever wins the Rookie of the Year, they'll be a member of the Sacramento A's. You could convince me Jacob Wilson, but I'm going to go Nick Kurtz. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. If Roman Anthony didn't get hurt, he may have had a better chance. You have the NL Rookie of the Years. You had Drake Baldwin, a wonderful year. He had 19 home runs as a catcher for the Braves. You had Cade Horton, who got hurt. He was really solid as a pitcher with 97 strikeouts over 118 innings, a solid ERA. Started 22 games and a very good ERA. But I think this is Caleb Durbin. He was an all-around player and just was part of that whole Milwaukee team that was swept out of the NLCS, but played just good, smart baseball and seemed to do everything right as the third baseman for the Brewers. If if Horton hadn't gotten hurt, I probably would give it to him. Um, and you can make a case for Baldwin. I'm going Drake. I'm going Caleb Durbin. Fight me on that. And then you have the Manager of the Year award. And remember, this is a regular season award. You have John Schneider, who you know managed the went first, last to first, and had lots of teams firing at him, and they wobbled, but they didn't break. And then you had Dan Wilson, who took over the manager job from Scott Service last year, and then they won those games down the stretch, especially that series with Houston. Remember that when it was tied, and then they clobbered them, and what looked like was going to be a great race down the end turned out to be an absolute Seattle laugher. I think it's got to be Stephen Vogt. I think for his second, I think it'll be back-to-back Manager of the Year winners with Stephen Vogt at Cleveland. Just the fact that they were 15 and a half games out. We forget these storylines because Detroit wound up beating Cleveland in the wild card series, and Detroit lost that absolute tremendous game, that game 5 against Seattle. But the Cleveland was 15 and a half games out in July, but even bigger than that, they were 11 games out in September, and they wound up winning the division. And to me, that's got to amount to something. Absolutely, that's got to amount. So I'm going Stephen Vogt on that one. And then comes the Manager of the Year in the National League. You have Rob Thompson. Again, it's so funny to say some of these names now. This is why you have to do this before the playoffs begin, because there's some questionable people questioning some of Rob Thompson's managerial decision. Why bunt at that point? Um, he's, but 96 wins, and what was supposed to be a tough playoff race against the Mets and against the Atlanta Braves turned into a laugher. And then you have Terry Francona, who, steadied the red ship and wound up, he's trying to get his fourth Manager of the Year, but he steadied the red ship and had them overtake the New York Mets on the final day of the season. And then you have Pat Murphy. And Pat Murphy lost his closer, lost his shortstop, lost so many, and this was looked on as, is this going to be a rebuilding year? And they won 97 games and played an absolute fabulous brand of baseball where they didn't make mistakes and they just played smart baseball, throwing to the right base, getting the right hits. I'm talking about the regular season now. This is a regular season award. And this is interesting because Pat Murphy won the Manager of the Year last year. And so I think there should be back-to-back Manager of the Year in both leagues, both Stephen Vogt for Cleveland and for Pat Murphy with the Brewers. Well, speaking of managers, there's some new managers having new jobs, and a star is opting out of the Red Sox. All right, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps getting better and better and makes every game interesting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen throughout this season. We're still doing Locked On MLB Game Time. We'll be wrapping up what's happening, and then find your favorite team. If you like what I'm doing, you're always welcome to jump aboard and float down the River Sully. But find your favorite team on the Lockdown Podcast Network and get ready for a great hot stove action and talks and discussion. Let's just go over a couple other things. There's a bunch of managerial decisions that have been made recently. The Twins brought in Derek Shelton, who was the former manager of the Pirates. Um, I'm all for moves like that. Um, I like when you give a manager another shot, someone who has already been there and done that and has made some mistakes and has done some things right, done some things wrong. I like giving managers a second shot because, I think there is something to experience. I'm not saying you always recycle the same players, but you know, it, it's it's good to have someone who's actually done it before. The Rangers bringing in Skip Schumacher, they bring in someone with a very, very strong reputation to be the new manager of the team. Kurt Suzuki is the new manager of the Angels. I mentioned that a few days ago. Everyone thought I thought it was going to be Albert Pujols. Hell, they're still paying him. Might as well have him do something. But Suzuki was the catcher when the Nationals won the World Series in 2019. Who knows? There are a lot of great catchers become uh, terrific managers. I already talked about Tony Vitello, the new manager of the Giants, who has no major league experience as a player or a coach. I still find that a very strange signing, but who knows? Watch him be the next John McGraw. Craig Albernaz, I'm not sure if I said that name correctly, is going to be the new manager of Baltimore. A lot of pressure on him. And I find that move to be very odd for this reason. This is a team that has a ton of young talent. It's only a couple years removed from a 100-win season. Everybody in their cow thought this was going to be a big-time contender. And a lot of those players are still there. They just had a they had a regression. I think what the move would have been to bring in a veteran manager, a been there, done that manager, to say, all right, we've got the talent on this team. Let's do something. I don't know. Did Joe Girardi get stupid? Did Joe Madden get stupid? As I point out, there's a lot of recent manager of the year winners who are currently sending out resumes. And you have a Baltimore Orioles team filled with terrific young talent, and they're handing the car keys over to the Craig Albernaz, who I still don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Now, look, he's been on some good teams as a coach, and maybe this is a situation where he's a lieutenant who will do a great job. And if it's the case, I'm not saying this is a bad hire. It's just I find it to be puzzling. Blake Butera, who is closer to my son's age than to me, he's 33 years old. He's the new manager of Washington. I don't believe he's related to former uh, Minnesota Twins catcher Sal Butera, but I could be wrong. Um, I understand that because this is a team that's in a full rebuild. And Butera has done a lot of different jobs in the Tampa Bay organization. He's been a coach, he's been a minor league manager, he's been in the front office, he's been in player development. So he's someone who apparently has a really good baseball brain. And the Nats are saying we're going to hire him as a 33-year-old and rebuild with him. So, hey, I can't say anything bad about that. I don't know enough about it. Walt Weiss is another example of a manager who had managed elsewhere. He was former Rockies manager, and again, a terrific baseball mind. Former Rookie of the Year, was part of the A's Bash Brothers teams, and part of a bunch of Braves coaching staff. So, and he managed in Colorado, as I mentioned before. So once again, they're giving the reins to someone who's done it before. So I don't have any issues with that. That's not a that just seems like a smart pickup. There's still some talent on Atlanta, and a lot of players are starting to opt out of their deal. Um, Trevor Story's re-signing with the Red Sox. He picked up his deal, but Bregman is going to test the free agent market. We all knew he was going to, and I don't think there's any chance he's heading back to the Boston Red Sox. I do like the fact that the Royals extended Salvador Perez, as there's a lot of really good talent on that Royals team, and Perez is the elder statesman. He is kind of their Yadier Molina, although I think I would have Perez as the better hitter. And the former World Series MVP is the link to that great run, the 2-year run, but that gave him a pair of pennants and a title. Oh, by the way, I want to just say something. I know I made a mistake the other day. I know I made a mistake when I said the Yankees haven't won a pennant since 2009. I meant to say World Series title. So yes, I know I looked back and said, oh yes, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. It happens, and when I do, I'll own up to it. But before we skedaddle, we'll talk about awards. Trivia question is: who are the only two pitchers to win Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and MVP in their career? No one did it all at once, but who are the only two pitchers to win Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and the MVP in their career? Put your answers right down here below. Talking about the awards that could be coming out and the fact that the Pirates need to put a major league team around Paul Skeens because, holy Toledo, Paul Skeens. Did I mention that? Did I go through the National League Cy Young? I don't think I did. Holy cow. I forgot to mention. I have the notes in front of me. Paul Skeens. I was wondering, why am I not thinking about Paul Skeens? Oh boy, I've even put him on the cover of this. Paul Skeens is the National League Cy Young Award winner. All due apology to Christopher Sanchez and Yamamoto. I have the notes right here, and I skipped right over them. You know, I'm not even going to edit this out. See, I made another mistake, and it is criminal that they don't have a major league team around him. He's a major league commodity, one of only 7 or 8 you have in all of the game. And you better go out, Pittsburgh, and spend some of that revenue sharing money that you're collecting and put a major league team around him, because you're the problem. Not the Dodgers, not the Mets, not the Red Sox, not the Yankees. You have a commodity like that who has a national presence now. He's doing the national ads and everything, doing the great thing, raising money for the Gary Sinise Foundation. And you can't put a major league team around him, and you trade away Gold Glove finalists like a Brian Hayes, who is not a great player, but he's a major leaguer. Can't believe I prepped that whole thing and I forgot to read it. But it's too late now. It's not too late for the Pirates. And maybe we'll have to talk about that a little more. This has been a slightly disorganized, and for a moment I considered re-recording it, but I don't have the energy. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm a goofball named Paul Francis Sullivan, and you can call me Sully. It was right there. I had the notes in front of me, and I forgot to read them. The man's the cover, the thumbnail. Oh, Sully, it's going to be a long off season.